Good morning, all of you, and welcome to Erudite, a fortnightly discussion conducted by AP State Council of Higher Education. My name is Nagesh Babu. Today, we are going to discuss on the topic Preparing Higher Education Institutions for Education 4.0. Today, we have with us eminent personalities. So, we have Professor N.V. Varghese, Vice-Chancellor, National Institute of Education, Planning and Administration, New Delhi. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
We have with us Professor B. Sudheer Prem Kumar, Secretary, AP State Council of Higher Education. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And we also have Professor G. Ranga Janardhana, Vice Chancellor, JNTU Anantapur. Welcome, sir. Education 4.0 is a purposeful approach to learning that lines up with the fourth industrial revolution and transforming the future of education using advanced technology and automation. Creativity is the foundation of Education 4.0. It emphasizes the need to prepare students to take on challenges. To keep up with this change, one has to revisit the traditional educational paradigms with a futuristic approach. Students should be adept with skill set by the fast changing technology. They should be led but not instructed. Information should be made accessible but not fed to them. Both general and vocational education should aim at making students skill ready to compete with the outside labor force. Education 4.0 was nothing but the curriculum of the future. It is about evolving with the times, and for higher educational institutions, this means understanding what is required of their future graduates. This Education Industrial Revolution 4.0 focuses on modern and smart technology, artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, etc., all of which influence our everyday lives. Hence, our higher education institutions should gear up to this massive transformation of bringing technology driven design into the curriculum with the assistance of educationists and other visionaries. Giving today's workforce the right tools will help us create a more multifaceted society where everyone plays their part well, adding to a self sustainable model of education. Today, let us discuss the topic Preparing Higher Education Institutions for Education 4.0. So, let us start with Professor N.V. Varghese. Professor N.V. Varghese is currently the Vice Chancellor of National Institute of Education Planning and Administration, New Delhi. He is also the founding director of the Center for Policy Research in Higher Education. He holds a doctoral degree in economics with a specialization in educational planning. He was the head of governance and management in education at the International Institute for Educational Planning, Paris till October 2013, and head of its training and education programs from 2001 to 2006. He was responsible for designing and introducing the IEEP Master's Program in Educational Planning and Management. In the 1990s, he was a professor and head of the Educational Planning Unit at NIEPA, New Delhi. He has been closely associated with educational planning at the federal and decentralized levels and with the design and development of externally funded education projects in India. While in NIEPA, he was responsible for managing an Asian regional network, the Asian Network of Training and Research Institutions in Educational Planning, and also the editor of its newsletter. While in IIEP, he was the Secretary General and responsible for the Secretariat of the International Working Group on Education, which is a network of funding agencies in education. I once again welcome Professor N.V. Varghese to the discussion. Professor, so we have this question for you. What
Okay.
strategies should AP State Council of Higher Education as a state body evolve to prepare higher education institutions for Education 4.0?
So it's my great pleasure to be part of this platform of the State Council of Higher Education of Andhra Pradesh. Friends, when I'm talking about, I'll come to Andhra Pradesh higher education, how the institutions change. I think there are two functions that an educational system tries to provide to society. One is that how do we change the values, attitudes, and behavior of the graduates or the students? The second one relates to how it is helping to improve the knowledge and skills. These two together makes an education institution more full-fledged. And when you're talking about education 4, I think 4.0, in what combination we are going to combine these two will be the most important dimension that needs to be done. Because if you see that, according to the India Skill Report of 2020-21, India's employability percentage is only 46%. Employability, not employment. Employability of the graduates coming out of different institutions. This is more so in case of in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Pondicherry, Puducherry, Karnataka, Maharashtra, etc. because there's a large number of private higher education institutions, engineering institutions. Now you find that many of these institutions do not have adequate enrollment. And one of the reasons is that the high unemployment faced by the graduates when they come out, of the system. So many a time there are criticisms which are raised against the institutions by saying that they produce unemployables or not, they do not produce employable graduates, So there is an issue. So therefore, employability, not employment. Employability becomes one of the important criteria based on which we need to assess the institutions. But at the same time, there is another type of argument by saying that higher education should not be confined to the industrial production, should not be the whole holistic approach to higher education should not be lost, confining very narrowly or defining it very narrowly to the requirements of the industry. Basically, what is said is that the future of work will be determined by the battle between automation and innovation. And that is the place where we have to prepare our students for the next generation, what type of skills, etc. Because the future of work will be determined by the battle between automation and innovation. And now what is the characteristics of automation? In automation, what happens is that a lot of routine jobs are replaced by machines. So that means it creates unemployment situation. Whereas in innovation, what we find is that a lot of employment opportunities are created. These are new jobs which are created. This has two dimensions, which is already noted by many people globally and in India too. One is that the jobs that we are talking about, which are emerging, for which the graduates will be ready, should be ready, are the jobs which are not existing today. So when you talk about skill development, what type of skills that you are talking about? Can we talk about job-specific skills? Can we align what is happening in the educational institutions, in the universities and in the colleges, along with the skill requirement? Or how do we define these skills? Or how do we define the 21st century skills? That becomes very important. That is why I said that automation reduces employment in the traditional sectors and especially those depending upon the routine work. The innovations, on the other hand, bring new tasks and new jobs which require higher order skills. And that is the place we have to place education institutions. How do they prepare our graduates for the new jobs that are emerging? And it is very important to see that the educational institutions do not degenerate into training institutions. You have to make a distinction between a training institution and an educational institution, education and training. At the same time, we should provide useful, relevant skills, Therefore, it can be argued that what is happening is that low and middle level skills people or jobs which are requiring middle level skills may disappear. We may get routinized, maybe taken over by the machines. Whereas the jobs requiring higher order skills and perhaps very low order skills, they may remain unchanged. So which is a sector, which is a segment in the employment market that will be more affected by this change is mostly the high level jobs and the lowest lower level jobs. When you're talking about universities and professional education institutions, etc., we are talking about the higher order jobs. So today people are talking more in terms of the competencies that are to be developed. It is not the skills. It is the competencies. And what is the difference between the competencies and the skills? The competency is what you can do with the skills that you have acquired. Higher education institution only tries to provide certain skills. But what is measured or what is assessed or what is the basis on which recruitment is done? It is not the skills alone, but what is your competency to do certain things. Today, This is done because you might have heard about National Higher Education Qualification Framework, which has already been, draft is already been prepared by the UGC. That defines both the skills and competencies which are to be attained by our college graduates or the university graduates. This will have a lot of implication for that. So it will change the competencies. What are the competencies or the skills, 21st century skills to be developed? So similarly, the learning methods, incorporation of new learning methods rather than the traditional one, and information and communication technologies, how they are going to impact upon the educational processes, and also how these services can be used and utilized that will decide how things are to be done. It is estimated that 50% of our current workforce will require reskilling by 2025 or so. It's a Herculean task because they are not trained in the way in which the skills are evolved over a period of time. The skills are required in the labor market, employment market. Therefore, they need to be reskilled. So what is being expected is that we will not be able to train people for skills. So one has to make a distinction between training and trainability. So what the university system, what college system tries to do is to develop the characteristics of trainability so that they are in a position to switch from one skill to the other, depending upon the job market, depending upon the tasks to which they are put, rather than overtrained in a particular in a particular skill area, so that should be the way. That is a basic difference between an education program and a training program. So we should give deeper understanding of theoretical understanding and also a practice based so that they are in a position to see that can be done and how things can be done, So therefore, it is important to see that how the educational system and the curriculum is organized. It is very different from the way that we are traditionally used to incorporate the changes in the employment market to the education market. So one is not talking only about education for employment or education for industrial development. One is talking about education for overall development, where the graduate becomes useful input to the industrial processes, the economic processes, and the development processes that we are talking about. That is the way we'll be in a position to provide education. That is the way we'll be in a position to redesign education. If you come to new education policy, it also talks about institutional consolidation, liberal education, and it also talks about the changes that are to be brought about in terms of the transfer of credits, the semester system. So I think there are 3 or 4 elements in the context of new education policy we have to take into account for the growth of higher education institutions, to align the educational institutions and the graduates more with the employment or more with the education 4.0. One is that today we have what is called as ABC, Academic Bank of Credits. Today we have something called as the credit transfer system, because you can be in a university, but you can follow courses in other universities. Especially with the online mode, it has become more easy. So you may go for another type of arrangement of acquiring credits, the courses that you want to take, the courses that you would like to indulge yourself or engage yourself in. This is an option which did not exist. The third one is that National Higher Education Qualification Framework, which very clearly defines from undergraduate degrees from 5, level 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 to 10, that is PhD, doctoral level, etc. It defines what are the skills and competencies which are to be achieved. Perhaps we have to align our curriculum, we have to align our education system with the new higher education qualification framework that is being created. That is, the draft is already available with the UGC, which will be finalized within 3 months or 4 months. So that is the arrangement that needs to be done. So the directions of change for higher education institutions, this will be a guiding. So 3 things that I am talking about. One is the ABC. The second one is the higher education qualification framework. And the third one that I am talking about, the credit transfer facilities. So these are the three important elements based on which the higher education institution has to respond. Because when you talk about liberal education, a student who is an engineering student, he also may be opting for sociology or economics or history or political science as one of the courses the student may like to have it. That may be from the same university or from another university. So how do you facilitate the transfer of credits? Or if the credit transfer is between two institutions located in two different countries, how will you try to do that? So therefore, that is the way that the higher education development, the institutional profile will change, and national higher education qualification will become the way based on which the courses will be designed, outcome-based courses will be developed, and also we'll try to see that one will be focusing on the competencies, etc. So it is important to see that this is developed very well, and these changes will also include one, or that it is demand-led instead of supply-led education. That's a basic change. That means we are familiar with entrepreneurial universities. In this phenomenon, what you will find is that entrepreneurial students. What is the difference between entrepreneurial students and ordinary students? The entrepreneurial students give a lot of emphasis to the choices that they would like to make and the menu that they would like to take for studies and programs and courses in the universities. So therefore, they will study only those things which they feel to be very important for them to get an employment or them to do whatever they want to do after the studies, So that is one dimension. Today, what is happening is that we provide training or we provide courses. The university offers courses. Suppose somebody is enrolled for a particular course, you don't have any option to opt for other courses. So that will not be the way the courses will be organized. Or in other words, what I am suggesting is that it will be the flexible modes of imparting higher education will become the most important dimension or based on which the institutions have to change. Flexible pathways to higher learning. That will be the key word. Flexible pathways to higher learning. That will be the way that the institutions will be changing, adjusting, adapting, and adopting changes, whereby the higher education system will change. So it will be competency-based instead of knowledge-based. It is not only knowledge for the knowledge sake or theoretical understanding. It is also try to see that this knowledge that we are possessing can be translated in terms of the skills and competencies so that it becomes more useful to the production, useful to the students. Thirdly, one will also find that it is a lifelong learning. It is not that one finishes a BA degree or a BEd degree or BCom degree or a BTech degree, then one is not going ahead. No, learning becomes lifelong. Therefore, the skills are changing in the labor market, are changing in the industrial sector. The higher education system is in the higher education system is in a position to readjust it to these changes. That becomes an important dimension of change, One will be talking about modular degrees instead of one-shot going degrees, So I think these 3 or 4 changes, one, from a demand-led to education rather than a supply-led education which is existing today. A competency-based education system or an institutional support rather than producing only knowledge and theoretical contents without relating it to the reality and practical orientation. And a lifelong education rather than education divided into 2 years or 3 years, a modular degree instead of a one-shot degree that we are talking about, These are the 3-4 elements which will be important for you, for each one of us to organize our higher education and also plan for our institutional changes, So therefore, what I try to say is that the 6 elements that I mentioned will define the directions of change in higher education in India and the institutional changes. I repeat these 6 elements. One is what is called as the ABC, Academic Bank of Credits. Secondly, the credit transfer system that is already introduced. A third one and most important one is the National Higher Education Qualification Framework. These are from the supply side. these are from the governmental intervention, these are from the public policy interventions. But at the same time, the changes from the student side and those who demand is that it will be led by the demand-led instead of the supply side. Everybody has a choice. The credit system provides that. Semester system provides that. Second, it will be competency-based so that once I finish 2 or 3 years in a school system, in a college system, I'm in a position to come out and a graduate say that I can do this, what I can do. And lifelong learning becomes part and parcel of the learning process rather than stopping learning at the end of BTech or MTech, And similarly, the degrees become modular. You accumulate credits and over a period of time, you get your degrees. So what it means is that the institutional structure, the brick and mortar system of education that you are talking about, in the form in which we are seeing it now, will not exist in the coming years. I am not saying that these brick and mortar universities will disappear. Brick and mortar universities will remain, but they will not remain unless they change. If they do not change, they will not exist. So therefore, what I am saying is that the brick and mortar system should change, and the 6 elements that I mentioned are the contours, are the framework, are the basis, are the cornerstones based on which these institutional changes will be taking place. And that is the future, and that is the direction of change that we see in the education 4.0. And the skills which are to be developed, the competencies which are to be developed, that will define the nature of courses offered, the nature of courses offered in different universities, and the freedom of the students, Only one danger with the education 4.0 in this scenario is that we give the major responsibility, learning responsibility, we are shifting from the instructors to the students. Because we see that if the student is not choosing right subject, it is your problem. We have given you the menu. You go to a restaurant, the menu is given. But if you choose wrong menu, you pay the money and you remain unhappy. So it is the responsibility of learning, the responsibility of developing competencies, the responsibility of preparing yourself for the market processes is put on your shoulders rather than on the shoulders of the institution. Even if you are enrolling in JNTU, you can have courses from other universities, other colleges. So you cannot blame JNTU that, you are unemployed. You had a graduation from the university, but you are unemployed. It is your fault if you have not chosen the correct courses, correct combination of courses, So in other words, what I am trying to say is that these 6 elements that I mentioned, in my view, will remain the focus of institutional changes. And at the same time, I also feel that the choices that are made by the students within the institutional structure and the changes which are introduced because of the credit transfer possibilities and ABC, that will define the profile of a graduate. The profile of a graduate will be different from the profile of the institution from which he is graduating or she is graduating, That's the way we will try to see that the higher education system will change, and that is the way things will be changing. So far as Andhra Pradesh is concerned, as I mentioned earlier, it has a very good infrastructure for engineering education, professional education, linking education with employment. But at the same time, you see that the market forces are acting very strongly in Andhra Pradesh. And if you see in Andhra Pradesh, 2008-9, YSR Reddy Chief Minister introduced what is called as a fee reimbursement scheme. And that scheme is still there. But nowadays, the budget has gone up like anything for the fee reimbursement. So the governments are hesitant to come out with the full amount of money to be given as the fellowships, etc. Why? Because at one point of time, the discussion in India was that the public sector is not of any quality. We should go to the private sector. But when we went to the private sector, we find that especially in the technical and professional subject areas, we find that the unemployment among the professional graduates coming out of the private sector is much higher than the unemployment among the graduates who are coming out of the public institutions, which questions the very initial argument of private institutions are providing what industry requires. That's why I started with talking about employability. Some studies show that the employability is only 20% of the graduates, 80% of the graduates are not employable. And some other studies, 2020-21 study that I mentioned, that talks about 46% of the employability, etc. So although I do not subscribe to the view that employability should be the sole criteria, only criteria to expand education, but that is also one of the important criteria. When you're talking about employability, the questions related to education 4.0 becomes important. And these are the elements, 6 elements which I mentioned, are the elements based on which the directions of change in higher education will take place. And that is the basis on which the institutions will readjust itself to offer higher education learning opportunities in Andhra Pradesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. That was very elaborate and insightful. So, as you have said, higher education institutions should produce employable graduates without compromising on holistic education and lifelong learning. Thank you so much for making us understanding the difference between skills and competencies, trainings versus trainability. And you also said higher education institutions should incorporate these 6 elements to tackle the changes in education 4.0. Thank you, Professor. I'll come back to you again. Now we have with us Professor B. Sudheer Prem Kumar, Secretary, AP State Council of Higher Education. Professor, what should higher education institutions do to prepare themselves for education 4.0? What are your views on this question?
Yeah, before I come into the mainstream of my opinion, let me bring out what are the major events that we have taken care or we have brought out from APSCHE, that is AP State Council of Higher Education. Maybe after say even before NEP and maybe in line with education 4.0, what we have prepared is a beautiful curriculum, engineering curriculum we have prepared by the APSCHE, involving eminent professors from IITs, NITs and universities, and I was the convener for the curriculum revision committee, in which we have prepared like what Professor Varghese was telling regarding the skills and the importance of the skills and application of the skills. We have at different levels we have prepared the curriculum. One is skill oriented subjects we have introduced, 2 skill oriented subjects, 2 advanced skill oriented subjects or advanced learning of skill oriented subjects, and then 1 communication oriented say subject. Like that 5 communication and skill oriented subjects we have introduced, which will be useful for any student to move towards the education 4.0. That means his understanding level will be increased and he can resolve what are the importance say or skills that he has to learn, so that he will suit for the industry requirement. So that the imparting of the skills will be taken care by the institution, and also not only by institution. That is what actually we are talking about education 4.0. We are making it open, either at university level or at different sources that are available in the say internet facilities, like maybe EduSat or NPTEL or whatever it may be. We are going to keep it open. The other way, we are going to see that the credits are going to be maybe transferable. From anywhere we can acquire the credits, and from anywhere to anywhere we can transfer the credits. For that matter, actually we have seen the example of meeting the credits from one student from US universities, and he has come to AP and he has acquired some credits in one of the universities in AP, and the same is going to be transferred to the US universities and vice versa. That is how we are going to prepare. One is going to be the skill oriented subjects, and another thing is we are going to introduce different say electives, either say departmental electives or open electives or say advanced say electives, whatever it may be. We are going to keep it open, so that what they can do is they can select based on the demand that is available in the market. Suppose if he is going to be mechanical engineering say graduate or student, even then also he can go for the subjects like computer science, and he can go for the say softwares based on the civil engineering background, or maybe the social subjects also. He can take any subject and he can acquire his knowledge and he can acquire his skills, so that he will be ready for meeting the requirements in the industry. That is what actually we are going to prepare. And then another thing is, that is for ordinary students. Then if there is going to be any extraordinary students, we are going to introduce two more options. One is by means of providing the honors degree. The another is by means of providing either like major and minor options. In case of the honors degree, what we are going to provide is, either in the case of same subject or even in the other subject, he can take like 5 additional courses and he can obtain the major degree, or he can obtain say like honors degree in that specialization. That is one say provision we are going to provide. The another one is minor degree. In case of the minor degree, he can go for one basic degree and 5 other subjects, so that he can go like say major degree of mechanical engineering with minor of civil engineering. Like that, he can get 2 different say degrees he can obtain. This is what actually we are going to prepare, and the same is going to be available for the students now, already started with first year last year itself. So options are really open, so that they can go for any number of options that are available. And in the recent past, we have introduced that Microsoft understanding also, MOU also, where almost 1.69 lakh students got number of almost like 40 different courses are available with Microsoft certification, which is once again need not be from one engineering background or one arts and science background or science background or whatever it may be. Any student can go for any course in Microsoft and he can complete that course and he can obtain any number of say credits. Like that, options are created to students, so that they can go for number of options as that is available in Education 4.0.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for letting us know the initiatives of APSCHE. So we got to know that even before the NEP 2020, engineering curriculum was revised and skill oriented courses were added, and APSCHE has initiated the credit transfers, and we also got to know about BTech minors and BTech majors program. So for all the information of the viewers, so we want to inform you that the government of Andhra Pradesh has entered an MOU with Microsoft Future Ready Skills program, where the MOU is to train 1.62 lakh students across the state of Andhra Pradesh in 40 skill oriented courses, and it is costing the government 31 crores, and it is available to all the students at free of cost. So now coming to Professor G. Janardhana. Sir, what should HEIs, higher education institutions, do to prepare themselves for Education 4.0?
So I'm really indeed happy to know that this type of activity is going on for the sake of the Education 4.0. Really, the earlier 2 experts have shared their expertise in the field of education, how the change of education system should be there. And the Professor Sudheer Kumar has rightly pointed out that the APSCHE has taken up a new steps in the initiation of changing the curriculum in the especially AP universities in line with the NEP. I'm happy to inform that JNTU Anantapur is the first university to start implementing the changes in the curriculum in line with the NEP 2020. We have already completed the process and the students are entered into the second year. Now the students are studying in the second year courses. A lot of flexibility is given in terms of the content learning and also the content delivery. The first one is the choice given to the students, and the curriculum is a student-centric curriculum. So unless in the earlier cases where the fixed curriculum, and though there are certain elective subjects, the list of electives are also freezed with 3 or 4 subjects under each elective. No, it is not like this. We have opened freedom to the given a freedom to the students, where they can choose their own electives rather than whatever the list of subjects that the university is provided. So the main motto of this one is there is a lot of change in the technology from day to day. Unless what you have learned a conventional mode of civil, electrical, mechanical, computer science, whatever the subjects, nowadays the change in the technologies is requiring in terms of the new fields of education, like artificial intelligence, IoT, Internet of Things, data sciences, machine learning, and the combination of these machine learning and data sciences also. So there is a lot of requirement in these particular fields of the specializations. Now, no more the conventional subjects may no longer lost in future. So, though the basic fundamentals in the concerned conventional subjects also needed, but these should be supplemented with the latest technologies in the field of AI and related to ML. So, I'm happy that we have introduced several such new electives, and also the students can learn on their own by choosing the latest content through the various learning management systems that are available online. So the only condition that the university is insisting that any learning management systems that are coming up with the new content that helps the students to learn the new content, and they should have some mechanism to evaluate the content that is being given to the candidate, and the candidate how the content is learned, the candidate how the content learned, how much content was learned by the candidate need to be analyzed. So there must be some system of evaluation. If any learning management system is coming forward with a prerequisite number of hours of the subject, and delivering to the student through online mode, through interactive sessions, and also an examination point of some sort of examination should be there through the online mode also. So once the completion of the subject, the number of credits that the candidate is earning, that can be transferred to the university. So we are ready to consider this type of educational system also. So because we need not make the student to learn as per the structure given by the fixed structure given by the university. Those days are olden days, those days are gone. So initially we have made 40% of the elective subjects can be learned by the students themselves in their particular field of interest. Initially, the student might be joined in electrical engineering or a civil engineering, but the student is very much interested to learn about the various Internet of Things that are available, the various modules that are available. And these content may not be an easy task for the university to frame a syllabus and give it to each and every individual affiliated institutions to follow the same thing. Because the n number of students are there, more than nearly 1 lakh of students are affiliated or studying in JNTU Anantapur. You cannot make so many number of the modules and so many number of subjects also. So 40% of such interested students can learn on their own by choosing their interested content through the learning management systems. And I'm happy to inform that one of the point raised by Mr. Professor Varghese that the fee reimbursement, in fact, the fee reimbursement is giving a better result. The GDP, the gross enrollment ratio of the state is the highest, is surpassed the average GER of the country. I'm happy to inform that because of these schemes, the people who are discontinued and not going to discontinue, they are continuing their education, and the government is there at the alma mater to help the needy people to continue the education, to complete the education. And our Honorable Honorable Chief Minister, Sri Vice Jagannath Reddy's aim is today's investment on the education and whatever the expenditure is there on the education and on the poor students will be the investment for the future. With this motto, sure that the AP will see the better result with these particular schemes also. So these are the few points I would like to convey to the members. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable thoughts. And we are also happy to know that JNTU Anantapur is the first institution to implement changes of NEP 2020. And you talked about content learning and content delivery and the student driven curriculum. So these are very valuable thoughts, sir. So for the benefit of viewers, as sir has talked about the improvement of GER, so when compared to 2018-19 to 2019-20, the growth of GER of Andhra Pradesh is 8.6%, which is highest in the country.
Yes.
And our Honorable CM always says that quality education is the only asset we can give to our upcoming generations. Coming back to Professor Varghese, sir, the question is, the COVID-19 pandemic has digitally stratified people based on the availability of resources to learn. The internet cannot be the only option if Education 4.0 is to reach the most vulnerable communities. What measures should HEIs take to enhance the reach of Education 4.0 to the most vulnerable communities during and also after the COVID-19 pandemic?
See, the pandemic has totally disrupted the normal education processes that we talk about. It has totally disrupted it. There is no disagreement on that issue. But at the same time, something is better than nothing. And that is what the technology is trying to do. I will not say that the technology will be able to replace the face-to-face interactions. But there are many things that can be done by the technology. And one positive thing, even with all the negative dimensions of digital divide that is existing, is that many educational institutions have moved towards an online mode without much difficulties. It is not the computer that has helped, it is mostly the mobile phones. Actually, today the education is taking place through mobile phones, not through classroom interactions, nor through computer based interactions. So the digital divide is less when we talk about mobile phones, and the digital divide is much higher, larger, and more intense when we talk about the computer. So we have moved towards that. Even then, you find that it is not equally spread. So already there is a process by which inequalities are spreading or widening in higher education, and this pandemic has contributed substantially to accentuate that processes. Say, for example, if you take the private higher education institutions, many colleges and universities cannot survive. Private universities could not survive because many parents are also not ready to pay the same amount of fees for online education like the face-to-face education, because there is a perception that when you go to the college, when you go to the laboratories and learn things by doing, you are a much better graduate in terms of the skills and competencies rather than getting all this information or all this online, So although online can be a good substitute on certain issues, it cannot replace the traditional brick and mortar system. And let me tell you that the teachers cannot be replaced by online mode. The role of the teachers needs to be changed, but that does not mean that the role of teachers can be replaced by online mode. So my point is that even after the COVID situation is over, when we get back to normal, many things that we started online will remain online. But online will not become a good substitute for the brick and mortar system. So one has to find out the complementarities and supplementarities rather than looking for the substitutabilities. So to put it differently, what I am saying is that pandemic has brought out a total disruption. And at certain times, given the digital divide, it was seen as something is better than nothing. And from that point of view, I welcome that. I welcome this change that is taking place. Secondly, a positive change is that it has done a positive change. It has made a positive change because our inertia to change has been removed. What I mean to say is that there is no other alternative, TNA. There is no alternative but to have online modes. The teachers are changed, the students are changed, the methods of teaching have changed, methods of assessment has changed. So many of these changes which can be sustained we should be capitalized on that, but we should not replace the teachers. Teachers, I feel, I am also a teacher. Now I am a Vice-Chancellor, but I was a professor, but I am a teaching Vice-Chancellor. I teach in my MPhil classes and I guide PhD students even today. So what I feel is that a teacher cannot be replaced through the machines. That is not the way we try to see whether you talk about education 4.0 or 8.0. So that is not a situation that you are existing, because that primacy of the teacher needs to be remain. The only difference is that teacher as a source of information is changing, or teacher as a sole source of information has already changed. Teacher as a facilitator, teacher as a guide, teacher as a supervisor, teacher as somebody as a manager in the teaching learning process, etc. These roles are increasing. We do not look at the teacher for information that you go to the computer, but teacher has a role and that role will continue. And digital divide has certainly aggravated the situation in the pandemic period. But we hope that after the pandemic, many things will be changing positively. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. We completely agree with you. So teachers have no alternative. Online learning cannot replace teachers, and something is better than nothing. And we are able to connect today only because of the technology, thanks to technology. So coming to Professor Sudheer Prem Kumar, sir, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed education forever. To prepare future graduates for work, universities must align their teaching and processes with technological advancement. How should we reimagine capacity building to strengthen education after COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, just now in line with Professor Ranga Janardhana was telling regarding the number of courses which we are going to prepare, or which we are going to have the credits from different sources. Of course, APSCHE has given some directions to all the universities, because university is an autonomous body where one cannot involve in the decision making, and university has to approve. The board of studies of individual department or university has to approve the individual subjects that are going to be presented or maybe given by a particular board or particular system which is offering a particular subject for so and so credits. So naturally one has to get the approval from the university, and accordingly, as Professor Varghese was telling, it is the choice of the student where one can decide his own menu. That means his outcome will be decided by his own choice. So that's what actually we are going to give. We are going to give the options as per education 4.0 or whatever it may be, and we are going to keep the options open to the students, so that depending upon the future requirements, depending upon the market requirements, depending upon the all other sources which are available, one has to select a particular course offered by a particular series or whatever it may be. Of course, in the other way, what we can say is, in my view, all engineering courses are going to be revamped in the days to come, so that all are going to be interlinked with education 4.0. That is like machine learning, artificial intelligence, or whatever it may be, the Internet of Things and the latest technologies that are available. They are going to be coupled with the latest subjects. Whatever the mechanical subjects are going to be there, they are going to be coupled with the latest things that are available, and those are supposed to be augmented, and they are going to be supplemented, so that it will be useful to the students and for the future generation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And you told engineering courses will be revamped and updated with the latest technologies. Sir, coming to Ranga Janardhana, sir, teachers need the important skills of collaboration, peer learning, critical thinking, and blended digital physical pedagogy. What challenges do teachers face to learn and also unlearn the required skills in consonance with education 4.0?
because of the changes in the technology and also the need of hours of the state that the new areas of upcoming areas of the various technologies. So need to be learned by the teachers first, and the same needs to be transferred to the students. So accordingly, there should be a change in the pedagogy also. So it is not wise on my part to say thanks to the pandemic, but it has learned as given us a very good lesson, and also to shift from conventional to the digital mode of learning. So as Professor Varghese rightly pointed out that the teacher cannot be replaced with pure digital to accept it. But a blended mode of learning is a apt situation for the present one. And whether the pandemic exists or not, the digital mode of the learning is also equally important. So that's why I'm calling it as it's not a totally replacement, a blended learning of the teaching methodology should be there in the higher education. The main reason is the availability of the experts. So we cannot seek the availability of experts at each and every place of the institutions. So that is not feasible also. So wherever the expertise is available, then we can use such expertise experiences and lectures through the digital platform. And I'm happy to inform that because keeping this in mind, and to spread the experiences of the various faculties and their content across the numerous number of the students, we have installed e-studios in the campus, where we are inviting the experts to record their lectures, and that lectures will be available in the portal, the university portal. The students, as and when required, they can download it, they can go through that, and if they have any doubts, they can send through the chat boards also. So this is one of the facilities that we have created in JNTU Anantapur. So this definitely helps not only the students, even the faculty also, who are the learners in initial stage, who joined freshly, and they too can learn such things from the experienced persons, and they can improve their knowledge, and they can improve their teaching skills, how they teach, the experienced teacher is communicating the content. So this is one of the advantages that I see in the digital mode of teaching.
Thank you, sir. That was very elaborate and also the needful. So you told teachers should learn the technologies first and then teach to the students. So we agree with you, sir. So what is coming out of the discussion is nobody can replace a teacher, whether it is education 4.0 or education 8.0, and higher education institutions should inculcate the 6 elements informed by Professor Varghese to prepare ourselves for education 4.0. Thank you so much for all of you for taking your time from the busy schedules and making this discussion wonderful and also fruitful. Thank you, sir, and we look forward to hosting you all again with another relevant topic. Thank you so much for coming.